It's finally interview time, so you know what that means? Interviews of the St. Louis Blues players today.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And a good day, good afternoon, a good morning, good time to you. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here in the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, I will be playing some interviews that I have of the St. Louis Blues players for you, which includes Captain Braden Schenn, in net number 50, Jordan Binnington, and of course, the Aussie, Nathan Walker. So a lot to get to on today's episode of Locked On Blues. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is game time. So, little disclaimer. This is 1 out of 2 episodes of doing these interviews. I am in Europe by the time that you're seeing this episode of Locked On Blues. So I am probably enjoying my time, but I wanted to give you something enjoyable, right? I'm doing a bunch of pre-recorded episodes, as you can tell by the same exact outfit that I have on in every single episode. But I thought about these interviews. Now, these interviews are not the longest. These interviews may not be the most insightful, but it's still pretty cool. I had about 10 minutes in the St. Louis Blues' locker room after their morning skate when they came to Philadelphia. And I was able to get a bunch of players. The fact that I have 6 different players that I spoke to one-on-one, it's a pretty cool thing. So, besides the typical media, speaking to Bush after the game and being surrounded by the whole media group, people, crowd, I was able to get just one-on-ones with these players. And I think that for me, this was just such a nice benefit, honestly, of being in a place where, you know, not that people don't want to travel to Philadelphia, but it wasn't against a team that's like a conference rival, a division rival, or even just a rival in general, right? I feel like the Blues and the Flyers don't really have any of that between them, which is not a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. And I feel like that gave me the opportunity to get some, exclusive one-on-one time. I was able to hang out with Jamie Rivers, which was pretty cool, who does some commentating for the Blues. It just was such a cool experience, and one of the best days, honestly, of my career was that day. And I will never forget it. The Blues won in a shootout win that night. Binner looked amazing in net. Kevin Hayes got his first goal after a handful of games coming back to Philadelphia. So it was a pretty cool night. So with that being said, the first player that I am going to play is going to be of Captain Braden Schenn. Being in Philadelphia, I watched Braden Schenn play for the Flyers when he was with his brother Luke Schenn. It was cool having both brothers on the same team, but Braden Schenn really stood out to me this past season. Yes, it was his first season of being captain for the St. Louis Blues, which was so exciting. I really wanted it to be him too heading into the season. While he may not have had the best season, he did have a hat trick this season. Like, Captain Braden Schenn did stand out to me a lot this season. And I think sometimes it goes unnoticed because maybe he doesn't have the biggest personality, but he is a vital piece of the St. Louis Blues team. With that being said, I'm going to play you the interview. And again, like, not that I was nervous, but I definitely was rushed and I felt a little awkward because to give you perspective, in the Flyers locker room, everybody knows I do stuff for them too. In that locker room, you can't record any videos, so it's just audio only. And I was like, this is so uncomfortable. Like, the fact that I'm able to do videos and I can film like that. I have like my camera up in their face. I did ask, by the way, if they all felt comfortable with that. I didn't want to ambush any player, make them feel uncomfortable in any way. So I did get consent from everybody that I have on tape to be on video. But it definitely was a little bit of an awkward, I feel a little like awkward doing this. So again, please do not mind if like I sound a little awkward or anything like that. It was my first time being able to actually record players through video after 3 seasons of just doing audio. So again, we all look back at ourselves and we're always like, oh my God, this is so awkward. But I thought it was a pretty cool moment. So enjoy me talking to Captain Braden Schenn. And yes, I know Kevin Hayes is no longer on the St. Louis Blues. And I know I asked him about that, but this was done in March. And I just thought it'd be kind of cool to share it. So here's Captain Braden Schenn. So besides Kevin Hayes coming back to Philadelphia, you're also coming back to Philadelphia as once a former Flyer. Do you have any maybe advice about what you can say to coming back to his city? What's it like embracing the fan base again?
Yeah, not really. He's obviously did it when he went back to New York. He's been around for a long time, so he's a good player here and part of some good teams, and I'm sure he's looking forward to getting back.
And captaincy, obviously, this is the first season that you're captain of the St. Louis Blues. Can you tell us what that's been like, being able to wear the blue note and wear it proudly with the C?
Yeah, it's a tremendous honor. There's a lot of people that have worn the jersey, but tremendous leaders on this team, whether they're captain or not. And I'm very fortunate to be in the position I am, and love leading the Red Wings.
And has there been any guys on the team? I know Zach Bolduc was called up, and you also have a Jake Neighbors who's been playing really well. Any of the younger guys that are impressing you?
Those guys right there. Jake's had a great year. Obviously, Zach's had a couple games in, but Joe Hofer's had a great year. So, lots of young guys stepping up for us.
Cool. All right, so it might have been a little bit hard to hear. I know I was kind of leaning over my computer, but Braden was a little bit more reserved in his answers. And again, that question towards the end when I asked about Bolduc and Neighbors, it had meaning to it. Zach Bolduc, and you'll hear this in the next episode of his interview, obviously scored his first NHL goal on his 21st birthday, which I thought was a pretty cool thing. But he was on fire when he first got called up. So I was really impressed by him. And that was around that time period. And of course, we all know the season that Jake and Neighbors had. I think Captain Braden Schenn, he said what had to be said. It's part of the game. And I'm referring to now about Kevin Hayes coming back to Philadelphia and him coming back playing on a different team. It is what it is. And that's, you get used to it as a player. But I think that Captain Braden Schenn, he is a quieter personality. And even off camera, when I put down the camera, I was like, oh my God, I felt so awkward filming you. But I told him, I said, hey, listen, I grew up watching you play, you and Luke. And I said, I just, it's awesome to finally meet you. I think when you talk about these players every single day, sometimes you're saying really good things, positive about them, negative about them. Sometimes it's a little bit awkward because it's like, I have questions that I want to know, but I'm not going to go up to Captain Braden Schenn. My first, probably and only time of the season, which was last year, saying to him, hey, why have you been a little bit slower? Has captaincy got into your head? I wanted to keep the questions, nothing scary, but I also wanted to get some good answers. And I feel like he did give me that. Yeah, would have I liked more out of it? But at the end of the day, I can't expect too much. But I like what Braden Schenn had to say about the whole, coming back to another team that you used to play for. I think that was some good advice. And he's a very calm demeanor. So the Schenn interview was something. Again, I didn't have that much time with all the players, but I think that he did give me enough to where I was like, okay, I kind of see where he's at. Obviously, he's honored to be captain of this team, and who wouldn't be? It's such a privilege to be wearing the blue note. He was a part of that cup winning team. So not only do you win the Stanley Cup with the team, you then become the captain of the team. And I think that is such a cool thing. The growth in his career from Philadelphia to now in St. Louis has really been something special. And I know that's something I kind of talk about quite a bit on this podcast, but it is true. When he played in Philadelphia, and I can speak from being here, did anybody think that he had what it took to be, had what it takes? Yeah, had what it takes to be captain of an NHL team? Not really. But I think that he really did elevate his game. He did become a leader in the locker room, and on and off the ice, he's just a dependable guy. On the ice, he produces, he does his job, he supports his teammates, playing wise, I'm talking about. So he does all that you need to do as captain. So he gave some really good, mature responses, and I felt overall good about him. I left and I was like, this is a really humble guy. And it just was so funny because I went up to him. I'm like, is it okay if I do this? And he's like, yeah, no, it's fine. But it was loud in the locker room because, well, you'll hear why it was loud with the Walker interview with Nathan Walker. But that fourth line definitely contributed to the reason why it was as loud as it was in that locker room after morning skate. All right. Before I play you Binnington's interview, I'm going to talk to you about Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching throughout thousands of tickets. One thing I love about Gametime Picks is that while the app is already super easy to use, you already know about the Gametime app. Gametime Picks shows you the best views with the best prices guaranteed. So you just go on the app, you use the Gametime Picks feature, boom, you get it, boom, you buy it. It's that easy. Like, I'm so serious. Like, I use it and I'm like, it's that easy. So this is what you need to do. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? Game time. There is a guy, you might know him, number 50. He's a net, and his name is Jordan Binnington. Now, Binner is such an interesting player to me, okay? For a number of reasons. I think that he just fascinates me. I mean, his rookie season, love Allen, but Binner comes in and he's able to get the Blues the Stanley Cup. Like that playoff performance, that 2019 playoff performance was insane. And I think about that a lot. Like, that was his rookie season and he was able to do that. I don't think there was a lot of players like Jordan Binnington. I really don't. I think that he just has such a demeanor about him, right? He didn't get hot and heavy this season with his like heatedness that you can see on the ice. Like, there's YouTube compilations of like Binner like fighting people. He didn't have that this season. And part of it, I do want to give credit to Joel Hofer. I think that having somebody that you can kind of mentor in a way maybe helped Binnington in a really weird, strange kind of father-like way grow up in a sense with his attitude and just overall demeanor. But again, it's not a dig on Jordan Binnington. Again, one of my favorites. You already know that, but it is something that I thought was quite interesting about him. With that being said, I am going to play you my Binnington interview. Maybe you've seen this before. I did an episode kind of talking a little bit about this, but I want to do a deep dive. And what I was looking to get out of this interview with Jordan Binnington, even though, yes, I know it was short, but I explained to you why it was going to be short, was his relationship with Joel Hofer, because that is something that really did intrigue me and something that I found quite interesting. So, with all that being said, here is number 50, Binner the winner. And again, if the audio is bad, I do apologize.
All right, so obviously this season the Blues have been, a little back and forth, but you seem to be the most consistent thing about this team right now. How do you feel like the defense has been in front of you?
I think just really strong, getting better as we've gone along too. Breaking up well, and they've been holding it down very well, and even the forwards have been doing a good job blocking shots from the point, and the penalty kills big factor too.
And even a guy like Joel Hofer, right, who's your backup, he's been having a good season. Do you feel like he's learned anything from you, or is he just kind of excelling on his own?
He's a really good goalie. He's a good kid, willing to learn, and this point in time in the career, learn from everything, and I think he's done a great job doing that. And it's been fun so far. It's been fun.
Cool.
So there was a lot that Binner said, especially when it came to the defense, how he felt like the defense was, performing really well in front of him in net. And that is something that we've talked about a lot on this podcast, how the defense needs to step up, because this season, the reason why the St. Louis Blues were even playoff contending was mainly due to Jordan Binnington and how solid and rock solid, let me go rephrase, he was in net. I think that the way that he performed this past season is going to be very hard for him to beat. And listen, having Joel Hofer too, you're going to expect to see Hofer play some more games than he did last season. And at the beginning of last season, I think people forget, but Hofer wasn't as dominant as people thought. He had times where he was struggling just a little bit. So I think that this is a really good step in the right direction for both Jordan Binnington and Joel Hofer. But I do think, however, being said, all things said and done, that the way that Binner talks about Hofer and how he basically is insinuating, hey, this guy, he's playing well, he's developing. Gives me really good hope about the future of the Blues because to have a good goalie Tatum, right? We saw that last year with the Boston Bruins and well, now they're kind of all Matt Swayman and Omar. Basically, it's a mess. So if you were to say who in the NHL at this very moment has the best goalie Tatum, I would say the St. Louis Blues do. I mean, they both represented Team Canada for Worlds this year, and obviously Benner was the starter and Hofer was his backup. But like, it is very unique to have two players on the same team in that situation, and it just goes to show that what they have here in St. Louis is a lot stronger than people make it out to be. And it's a positive, right? I think that there's no way you could look at this and see it as a negative. I think that you look at this and you see it as an ultimate positive. So, again, to kind of recap on where I'm at right now, I feel confident. I really do. I feel like having your starting goalie say he feels good about his backup, that he actually feels good about the defense and how they're making strides to be even better is a very positive thing because I think, watching this team, and again, this was done in March. So this was done late in the season. So I think looking at this team and, we pick apart the defense quite a bit, but statistically, they weren't like the worst defense in the league, right? They were actually pretty good statistically. So I think that having Binner say all that kind of gives reassurance that, yeah, it actually isn't as bad as we made it out to be. Again, do the Blues have the best defense? No. But you knew that. I knew that. We all knew that. And then I love the praise of Hofer, as I stated. It is such a cool thing to think that the St. Louis Blues, pretty much, even with Allen, when Binner was backing him for that one season, a little bit before Binner jumped in, haven't really had those two, like that starting goalie and the backup goalie. And now that they have that, that wasn't a concern whatsoever in this offseason. You think, how can the offense improve? Improve? How can the defense improve? Not once did I ever think to myself, well, how is it that the Blues' goalies can improve? Because there is no answer for that because they don't really need to. There's something else they need to do. Obviously, yes, make sure that you're still drafting and developing and doing all that you need to do. I know Brian Elliott's on that size now, Moosey, as I like to call him, Moose. But other than that, in terms of players for this season, next season, following season, I'm not worried. I feel good. Hofer, yeah, did he concern me a little bit? He did. And I was like, oh, should he get some back down to the AHL? They ultimately made the right decision by not doing that. Subban was down there, but yeah, Malcolm Subban, remember the only move that happened at the trade deadline. But being said, I am really happy with who we have in net. This next interview. I teased this interview on Twitter at Locked On Blues, which, by the way, you should definitely follow on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. This is the most ridiculous one yet. It's so ridiculous. To basically sum it up, that fourth line was the funniest group of guys I've ever met. Now, I've been in a ton of NHL locker rooms, doing post-game interviews, doing things like that, right? Not just for Philadelphia. I've been in Vegas as before. I was doing somebody a favor by doing that. But I've been in a lot of different locker rooms. But never in my life did I think I laugh as hard as I did with these guys on the fourth line. Now, let me go sum it up a little bit. I'm doing my rounds of interviews. I'm going around to all the players. Binner, you saw how serious he was. So as I'm finishing up my interview with Jordan Binnington, I look and I see a couple guys. And they look at me and they say, "Are you not going to interview us?" And I'm like, "Okay, I can." I don't like bothering players when it looks like they might be busy. So I had to end up getting my glasses because I couldn't see, but I found the audio of the interview. So yes, here's Nathan Walker and his line mates. But essentially, yeah, they called me over and here's the interview. It's short, it's simple. I laughed a lot. Enjoy it.
So you got that extension. What's that been like, now knowing that you're going to be in the city for a couple more years?
Yeah, it's been great. Obviously, I love the organization, love the guys. Yeah, so just really excited for my family and I.
Yeah. And how's the season been for you personally? Do you feel like you've been having a good season with, the goals? I mean, you've been scoring since you've been back up here.
Yeah, it's been good. Obviously, I get to play with Sonny and Topo every night, so it's they definitely make it a lot easier on myself. And
Having good teammates.
exactly right. Yeah. Good line minutes, but
Yeah.
no, it's been good. Yeah.
Awesome.
It was so ridiculous. Okay, so you might be like, okay, well, you asked a good question. He was excited about the extension, obviously, and being here, but the whole entire time, and I kept on laughing during the interview. Uh, so we all know Sonny is like a little bit of a jokester, right? We know that about him. So I'm just minding my own business, right? And then all of a sudden, Sonny's just making faces. And I'm like, Oscar, I'm doing my interview, but I keep on laughing. It's like, it was funny. I'm like, I'm not going to not laugh, right? That'd be disrespectful. But then you have Alexi. And Torpo is a funny guy. Like, even him too. As soon as Oscar began, doing faces like posing, Torpo did the same thing. So that's when I panned over to them. I just thought it was a funny interview. I mean, those guys really did crack me up. And it was one of the funniest things. And I feel like that was like, I mean, as I said, I've been in a lot of locker rooms, right? I feel like that was like one of those moments where I felt like the most comfortable in a locker room, if that made sense. I just felt very like safe in a really like, I don't know how else to describe it, but yeah, that's how I felt. So those were part 1 of interviews, and part 2 will be on the next episode. And like always, let's go Blues.